Hey guys, so who's gonna season all these crabs in a bucket? If you got some recipes for a clam bake, send them on over to Bang Si-hyuk, because when he gets back to Korea, he better host a clam bake and invite New Jean's mama and make sure that them crabs in a bucket are seasoned, because you know she's gonna try to pass off her imitation crab as lobster in her rolls. So if you haven't heard, Bang Si-hyuk, the chairman of HYBE, the parent company of BTS and 17, and yes, even New Jeans, issued an email to company staff, an all company email. And it's the first time that he really specifically or publicly tried to address all of the drama that is surrounding him that looks like a horrible witch hunt against him regarding, if you're going to type in the search thing, the IPO scandal. We've gone over it in several previous videos, but in a nutshell, he is being accused of defrauding early investors leading up to the HYBE IPO. The way that the media is framing it is that, oh my God, Bang Si-hyuk committed capital market fraud against ordinary retail investors, which is the furthest from the truth that you can get. HYBE officially has said that there is no validity to these allegations, these accusations, and even this whole police raid. They said that all the transactions were conducted within legal boundaries after going through a legal review. Is there some sort of possible validity among the mess that's being blown out of proportion, where somebody did do something wrong with some stocks? And they are saying that there are 3 former employees of HYBE that may have engaged in insider trading. And insider trading is essentially when you have information about the company and that the public and regular investors don't, and then you trade on that to make a profit, which happens a lot more than you think. It's just like a matter of whether you get caught. But that has nothing to do with the accusations against Bang Si-hyuk. Now, the reason why this seems so suspicious is that the IPO happened in 2021, which means they've had 4 years to go after him if this were actually valid. And they had tried and failed because there was no there. Now, is it the investors themselves that are complaining and being like, oh my God, Bang Si-hyuk defrauded me? No, we haven't heard a peep out of them. I would like to know who they are. But instead, it's a government agency that is investigating and launching this attack on Bang Si-hyuk and HYBE, saying that it's out of the public interest. If it was in the public interest, and if there were evidence of this, then they should have already gone through this. And so now they're having a very invasive search and seizure of HYBE, Bang Si-hyuk, and working with the media to try to make it seem like such a big deal. Now, this is why I think Bang Si-hyuk is going back to Korea. We'll go over his letter, but if it's, too long, didn't read, essentially, it looks like HYBE internally is being rattled when you don't have the leader, because Bang Si-hyuk is in America doing international agreements and then also probably working with BTS on their new album in Los Angeles. He's been away from Korea essentially, and he takes a lot of trips outside of Korea. So if there are a lot of attacks for the head honcho, a lot of the times in Korea, the head honcho is there and he's like calming everybody down. And people, even if they work in HYBE, that kind of media smear, media campaign manipulation on your mind works within your own staff as well, maybe even more so. And so he's going back to resolve these issues, he says, and he apologized and took responsibility for this rattling everybody when they should just focus on creating great music and working on their own. Now, not to mention, the stock price has gone up, during all of this drama especially, and he did make this announcement to his employees the day before a shareholders meetings or an earnings announcement, and so it did have a good lift on the stock. But looking at this situation, seeing how it's mainly politicians, bunny uncles in the government, launching the attack against HYBE through the Financial Supervisory Service, which then kicked over their recommendation for investigations to the Future Security Commission, and apparently that has enough power to then pressure prosecutors to approve a search warrant so that the police can go and do a raid and try to collect evidence. Up until this moment, the prosecutors have been saying, no, there's nothing there to warrant this kind of investigation. Now, the prosecutor's probably under a new administration as well, pressure from the new president Lee Jae-myung, who's in the liberal camp, although it's a little bit odd because, once a time ago, there was one HYBE employee supposedly complaining, doing a media smear against Bang Si-hyuk, where Bang Si-hyuk was trying to convince her, according to her, to vote for a liberal candidate. So you see how this is all a mess. Yesterday's friends are today's enemies. And so they have had this investigation, but the reason why I think he's coming back is that it looks like it is motivated by the political class that is still butthurt over not winning the World Expo. Remember when they totally used BTS to try to get some Aura Farm for their bid for the Busan World Expo ahead of that almost disastrous, deadly crowd crush situation to be, where they were going to have that last concert of BTS at a glass factory next to the ocean that was so abandoned and muddied and only had one entrance in and out. Remember, we saw that, I went over there and captured some of the video. And so these politicians have this feeling of being owed. And especially since they put their neck out on the line for New Jeans Mama in the National Assembly and the Labor Commission, all of the other entities that it takes for it to get to a national level, there are a lot of people who have had to go along, be co-conspirators, be tempted and accept the temptation, whether it was paid in full or on layaway of a bribe, to continuously cross their boundaries, which is in a nutshell saying that a lot of people have skin in the game to see Bang Si-hyuk fail, to see HYBE fail, to see BTS fail, and to continuously think of them as the enemies, and then New Jeans Mama and all of her cohorts and the New Jeans girls themselves as angels. Otherwise, these people who have gone along with this con are going to have this fractured mind where they can't stand the guilt, they can't stand the regret, they can't stand the shame. So it's easier to try to keep attacking Bang Si-hyuk, try to get to the finish line, and then just be relieved that they're not necessarily the bad guy. Except the truth, if it is the truth that Bang Si-hyuk is innocent, that's going to come crashing down much harder and destroy a lot of the credibility of these institutions. But not before I think they're going to get some apple boxes. I think part of the reason that Bang Si-hyuk needs to go back to Korea is to go shopping, get the best fancy apples of the season in the prettiest boxes. And I don't know if it's, legal. Well, it's definitely not legal. I don't know if he's, willing to go apple box and then some chips underneath, basically, these apple boxes. If you want to get a bribe, I would say a medium-sized bribe that has to be in cash. You put it in a big apple box. So premium apples in Korea come in these horizontal boxes. They're huge, they're succulent, they're juicy, they're so expensive that, minimum $3 each, maybe $10, 20. Last time I've been to Korea, department store, $20 an apple. So they're these fancy apples. They're meant to be gestures of respect, and they are good. But what's underneath the styrofoam is usually, our Miss 50 in bundles, 50,000 won cash notes, all tucked away. If it's going to be a mini small bribe, then you bring them a box of vitamin C drinks or Bacchus D, and, you got it lined up with some, either Miss 50s or Mr. 10s. And then I guess if it's like a huge other, bigger bribe, and if it's still cash, I don't know. Maybe it's duffel, I don't know. It's something with trunks of cars and stuff like that happening, or something else. But it looks like he maybe is conceding that he has to take care of people who have been jealous of him, because I am reading between the lines of his letter. So let's just go over his letter and see, exactly what I'm talking about here, because on the surface of it, it seems very neutral. But if you read between the lines, I think we can see a lot what's going on. He says, "Hello members, this is Bang Si-hyuk. It's been a while since I emailed you." So yes, he's acknowledging that he's been out of contact with his rank and file, and now, the media smear campaigns are shaking his employees. So yeah, like a good person who is the head of a company, you ignore until it affects your real staff and company. He goes on to say, "With the various circumstances that have persisted since last year, coupled with my own personal issues, my company and my name have been constantly mentioned in negative news, aka negative smear campaigns. It's difficult to imagine the depth of confusion, loss, and concern that our members who have taken great pride in being part of HYBE must be feeling. Essentially, you say it enough. We've heard this in marketing class, propaganda class, anything. Like if you say something long enough, people will start thinking it's the truth. And that is definitely the relentless drive of this media smear campaign. As founder and chairman, I feel a heavy sense of responsibility for causing such concern. And first and foremost, I offer my sincere apologies to all members who have been inconvenienced by this situation." So this is very good because he is taking responsibility, even if it's not his fault. It's seen, especially in Korea, if you are involved in a conflict, and even if you're the victim, the fact that you are involved in a conflict that affects somebody else's lives, I would say 8 times out of 10, those people also think it's your fault because, you should... The onus is that, you should go resolve this. You should fix this so it doesn't affect my life. But nobody says it like that because that sounds really selfish. And so what they do is usually they kind of attack even the victim, saying like, why are you making trouble? Why are you creating a fuss? Saying it's like kind of like a universal problem, but really it's just like, you're affecting my life. Super selfish. But when you hear it spoken out, it doesn't sound selfish at all. HYBE was the starting point of my journey to realize my ideals and dreams as a creator. I wanted to create a platform where creators could fully express their unique colors and artists could freely pursue their dreams. He's reminding people at HYBE what the difference is about HYBE versus SM, JYP, YG, where he's respecting the creator because he is one of those creators. He is one of them who is really focused on freedom of artistic expression. Furthermore, I hope to improve the quality of life of those working in the industry so that everyone could feel happy and proud. The journey, which began small, has expanded with the determination to become a strong foundation for creators, artists, members, and industry professionals alike. Thankfully, it has grown with the sympathy and love of many. So all of you guys have been on this journey. This journey has been pretty good, huh? Because yes, Papa HYBE was able to create this space that was like creators first, and we have grown. So let's not forget, what kind of a privilege it is to be sitting in the HYBE building, and not in some basement like maybe some of them, kids from New Jeans Mama. This is the key paragraph. Because it began with a grand dream and a sense of mission to advance the music industry, I've always prided myself on doing my best to remain true to myself throughout the process. However, I humbly reflect on the fact that at times, that confidence may have been perceived as arrogance. I am deeply reflecting on whether there were any shortcomings or oversights I overlooked during the process of growth. Perceived as arrogant. This, I think, is the core issue of what's going on and explaining the attacks. His way of saying, I got a lot of haters, is trying to be more self-reflective in the way that you got to talk as Korean, in Korea with, etiquette and manners, but sometimes it just blows over the head of people who are not we're like 5 layers deep beneath the surface of the earth. Can you just say what you mean? So there are many reasons why he would be attacked for his success. And the way that he's trying to say it is that perceived as arrogant. So on the surface, okay, if you really think I was arrogant, I'm sorry. I will try to reflect upon that to fix it, because people, yes, not just Korea, but in general, if you elevate a certain station, it will just make people feel like you're being arrogant, even if you might not be arrogant. Now, these are some of the issues that I think were essentially shortcomings, if I give unsolicited advice to Bang Si-hyuk, in a way where essentially I don't think it's really your fault, but somewhat it is your fault that you didn't realize how powerful of a dysfunctional force there is that you got to placate. And so, number one, the crabs in a bucket thing, especially members of the government, people who are gonna be working with you in terms of regulations, probably you need their help in the government. They expect a little bit of a kickback or a payback or a job for their kid that's some nepo baby that don't know how to, 1 + 1. You gotta give people things if you don't want them to retaliate. Now, I don't put it past HYBE. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't bet, because I don't know. I have no evidence. So we have no evidence that, they engage in these activities. But on the whole, I would say that HYBE engages a lot less in that type of activity, because you can see what happens when you focus on your job, you get a better result. A lot of these companies that have to focus on this game, that becomes their priority, and they forget about their main business, and the business starts to decline. Whereas when I see a situation where somebody's business is accelerating and then they look like they're kind of dumb in terms of like the politicalization, playing that politics game and getting a lot of hate, that to me says that they haven't been ordering a lot of Apple boxes, if at all. And they don't pluck out cash willy-nilly. So it looks like, again, when HYBE says we want to stick to our principles, I think in general, it looks from the fruit, know a man by their fruit, that they probably do that a lot less or none, which is good and admirable, which leads to good focus on your actual core business. But it pisses off haters. And these haters can totally be then weaponized, gathered, and coordinated by some mama hen who wants to lay some eggs. But everybody needs a justification if you want to cross the line, the boundaries into your morality. Because a lot of these people, they're not that strong. They want to be attached on to something that's going to get them something, and they think it's going to be something for nothing until they realize, oh, there's this kind of like thing, like your conscience popping up, and it's easy to get rid of that, conscience talking to you if you can vilify the person you're about to rob or take advantage of. And so in this case, a lot of these people will call Bang Si-hyuk arrogant. That is enough to justify treating him badly because he treated me badly because he's so arrogant. And where we have seen this already weaponized is like, oh my God, I can't believe Bang Si-hyuk didn't greet me in the elevator. As if that, in a context outside of Korea, you would be laughed if you actually try to put that argument on par with actual real transgressions. But in Korea, you can sort of get away with it because the greeting, the etiquette is so important. And I think Bang Si-hyuk probably, even though he's Korean, this is where he fell short, where it became a problem that I want to argue right now is completely not his fault. And he is being then again blamed for a condition that is, he shouldn't be blamed for. You guys all know by now, most likely, the war of bowing. Who bows the deepest is the one giving more respect. Now, if you're out totally new to the Korean context, you'd be like, oh my God, they're so subservient. Why are they bowing? Their head is to the ground. Especially these days, maybe back in the old days, and definitely in a very innocent way. If you bow to the ground, you're trying to say that, you deeply respect the person you're bowing to. You're putting them on a pedestal. And you are, being subservient and giving them the utmost respect. That is what it means in its truest, honest form. In the modern day, especially in Seoul, the deeper the bow, the longer the knife will be in your back, because the ones who go to Pilates and practice their 90-degree bow, or maybe even going down all the way to like 120, with that core strength, you don't get that from anywhere. You get that from like Pilates. You got to practice for that. And then why? Because that gets you promotions, that gets you entree into, particular rooms. If you really screw up, you just get your Pilates, get that core strength and crunch going, and maybe you can get out of trouble by your bow. The bow is so important. Now, we've all seen in K-pop, they are the number one ace of the ace in mastering the bow, which is, I think, a little bit ironic because I think the bow is what gets Chairman Bang in trouble. And I think somewhat it's not his fault, it's just physics. And I don't want to I'm not fat shaming, and I'm not, I'm the last person to be fat shaming. But if you really think about it, a skinny K-pop idol, even if they go to 30 degrees, the way that they do it can look a lot. So when they do a 90-degree bow, a K-pop idol, it looks like a big, oh wow, that took a lot of effort. It means a lot. It's a big dramatic change. Now, if Bang Si-hyuk, even if he goes, just imagine this, even if he goes really 45 degrees, which is pretty standard, I think on him, it might even look like only 10%. Yeah. He could not really pass 45. And then, if he did 90 just through physics, it would be a toppling situation that's not good. Okay. That would be, and how many back problems is he going to get? So I think he probably doesn't bow deep enough. And his effort to get to even 30%, I think probably counts more than a K-pop idol who's been working on their Pilates and going all to 90. And, outside the Korean context, you guys, just go think about all the images you've seen of curtsying to Queen Elizabeth II or over in England. You think that Princess Beatrice is not taking her tiara to Pilates class to trying to practice the exact physics of the motion and exact angles and deepness and depth of her Pilates based on the rank of whoever she has to run into with and without the extra added head weight? Those girls, have been Pilating their way to curtsies. This is kind of like an important, like, it's an important thing in a certain context. And unfortunately in Korea, it's just like way broad, like every day in your life, you have got to be bowing, and it does take a toll. I have heard a story, an anecdote. I might have shared this before, but somebody was working with a girl who got married, and she had to go to her husband's hometown to greet, the family, kind of like, in a nice villagey situation. And she was bowing so much, she said, for a day or two, that she had to take vacation days to recover from the physical strain of bowing. Okay, that's how important it is. If she didn't bow enough, then she'd be classified as rude, and then not only she, but her family would feel the wrath of people who would have felt slighted. Is it immature at that level? I think so. Are the bunny uncles in the National Assembly mature ones? Oh, we've definitely seen that the answer is no. So, number one, I think, Bang Si-hyuk, you gotta work on your insa. And I don't know if you better go to Pilates. You probably have a Pilates studio in the HYBE building. Go on that, that thing that you go like this on. Hey, get that instructor and get your bow beyond 30. Maybe you got to work to at least 45, and then wear something that enhances the angle, but like as a visual effect, whether that is maybe like some sort of like something that dangles and falls down, like, some, I don't know if you can get away with like a neck, a chain and a piece, but something where it looks more enhanced, or something where you could do it with your arms or hands or something like that. Moving on in the letter, while I'm fully aware that I'm causing great concern to our members, the past few months have been a painful time for me as I have failed to respond more swiftly to the various allegations and controversies. So good. It seems as if maybe he's going to put on some strategy and some, man hours into actually fighting back, instead of just, being so quiet and then trying to win, like as Mother Teresa in the end. I am particularly sorry that my personal issues may have directly or indirectly harmed our members and artists who should be free to pursue their creative and business endeavors. So basically he's saying, Nugent's mama, once you are really threatening my bag, my people, oh, it's war. As a creator myself, this situation has been particularly painful. As the authorities' investigation is ongoing, I've had to be very cautious with every word I say, so I ask for your understanding. So he's trying to say, remind us that he also is constrained in what he's can say. So at least he is expressing his willingness, and that goes a long way as well. However, I know better than anyone that I cannot allow my personal issues to continue to burden the company and the industry due to the music production of our artists who are about to make a comeback. And the expansion of our business for the future of our company. I've been forced to spend extended periods of time abroad in recent years, explaining, like I'm doing this, I'm not just rodeoing. That was so horrible. But, he's not doing this just for fun. He is doing this for work. However, I will put urgent work and business meetings on hold and return to Korea as soon as possible to prioritize the authorities' investigation, really be the shield for the rest of the company against all these people rifling through your stuff. Just as I provided a detailed explanation of the circumstances surrounding our listing during the financial authorities' investigation, I will diligently cooperate with the investigation and provide a detailed explanation once again. I expect the truth to be revealed through this process, and I humbly await the authorities' decision. I express my deepest gratitude to all HYBE members who have quietly maintained their position amidst the chaos. Your dedication, the relentless pursuit of passion from our creators, and the brilliant work of our artists are the most powerful forces driving HYBE. So he's acknowledging everybody's work, their contribution, and how he holds them in high esteem. The incredible achievements we are achieving both domestically and internationally would not have been possible without the sweat and effort of each and every one of you. I have deep respect for your sincerity and capabilities in creating a content industry that garners global attention through the intangible asset of music. Remember, It's not just about a commercial sponsorship that they're doing all of this for. They're doing it for the music. I will do my best to explain and resolve the situation so that my personal issues do not hinder your talent, capabilities, or even your spirit or of challenge. I will never forget that my role is to firmly protect you so that you can focus solely on your creations and business in your respective positions. People want to feel protected. People want to feel like, they should not be brushing up their resumes to try to go somewhere else that everything is going to be copacetic in the role that they're already in. At the same time, like all members of HYBE, I will never lose sight of my original commitment to the advancement of music and the industry and will constantly reflect on it. Reflect on it, that term works really well in Korea with, signaling humility, but not really committing. To all members of HYBE who continue to shine in their respective roles, I once again offer my deepest apologies and bow my head in gratitude. There is the bow. Yes, in the letter. Now we got to see it work itself out in the real physical. Even if you got to get a cane to do it, even if you got to get a walker for some support to do it, Mr. Chairman, 90 degrees. I think that should be your goal. So what do you guys think? If you got some recipes for a crabs in a bucket dish, Bang Si-hyuk really needs that. And, no shade, but Chairman Bang, I think we need to work on the degrees of your bowing. I think it'll solve a lot of your problems with actually, no apple boxes. All right, guys, put your comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.